I'm so enchanted by this tiny Mora blade. I want to make a start on it, you know? I want to make a knife. And so I thought about ways I could do it quickly. But if I do it quickly, it's not going to be as good. So maybe I'll take a little bit of time. I've had this piece of cherry wood kicking for a while. It's kind of mostly just grain, normal grain, but it has these little bits of burl here. And so I've started carving out this kind of section with an eye to making a kind of a bit of a handle. You know, maybe even just make a little handle, you know. The handle would be about as long as the blade, but you know, I could fill in a little bit up here with something. So I'm going for a kind of a semi-live edge kind of deal. And the notion occurred to me that I might do a little bit of beavering here and tell a story. So the story is that, it's a true story, is that I was in the car today with my dear wife, and I said to her, you know, I made up a story in my head today. And she said, oh yeah, I do that 1,000,000 times a day. And I said, well, I think this is quite a good story. Do you want to hear it? And she kind of said, well, you know, no. I'm like, well, you don't want to hear it? Anyway, in the end, she kind of acceded. You know, she said, yeah, okay, fine. Fine, tell me the story. So I started telling the story. And as we were driving along, she saw something that caught her attention. Somebody had some political slogan displayed in their backyard. And so she interrupted the story to tell me about it. And when I picked up again on the story, apparently I said, okay, well, I'll just finish telling my joke. I didn't realize I said that, but because I was trying to tell a story. But for some reason I said it was a joke, right? And she laughed so hard at the story, you couldn't believe it. And because it was just a story that I made up, it wasn't necessarily meant to be funny. I couldn't understand why she was in hysterics. Anyway, so the story takes place, let's say, I'm going to retell it now, hopefully a bit better than I told it to her, because it was really bad. It was like the way I tell a joke, which is not funny. So it's funny that she laughed. But, you know, it kind of went on, and I kept correcting myself and introducing little bits. And so our story takes place in the USA. I guess it could be pretty much anywhere in the USA. Sometime fairly recent, you know, within the past few decades, we might say. And the narrator of the story, as it were, the first person in the story, it occurs to me I'll just say I, right? Since it's the story of I, right? Even though this is a made-up story. So, I was hitchhiking across the land. You know, I didn't have any real destination, no real prospects anywhere, no ideas. What do I want to do with my life? And so I was just, you know, doing a bit of this and a bit of that. Tried a bit of ranching, tried a bit of whatever, you know, chicken farming. Moved along. And so there I am hitchhiking, and guy picks me up. He's driving a Crown Victoria. That's a pretty unusual car, you know. I'm a kind of a car guy, you know. If anything really ever interested me. But I did a stint as a mechanic, and it didn't work out. Right? I'm a real butterfingers with the tools, and I don't get it. No, I don't care. It doesn't interest me, actually, that aspect. But I like the car. I commented when I get in the car, man, you're driving a Crown Victoria. That's a pretty unusual car. And he was not a car guy. He was like, yeah, oh yeah, is that what it is? I don't know. He says, I'm driving across America, and my last car broke down a few hundred miles back there, and the tow truck took me to a place, and they just traded me in that thing for this thing. I was like, oh yeah, what did you have before? I don't know. It was red. Now I got this white car. And man, you know, we're driving for hours and hours, and the roads are pretty open. But what would happen is that every time we came upon another car, we'd get stuck behind them. He'd like to drive, you know, if maybe, let's say if it was a 55, he wanted to do 70. But it almost seemed as though we'd come up behind people, and then they'd slow down. And he started complaining to me. He's like, oh, man, I've been driving this thing for 3 days now, and this keeps happening to me. What is it with the people in this state or the people in this area? They see you coming up behind and they slow down. I said, bro, you're driving a Crown Victoria. It's white and it has a roof rack on it. Everyone who sees you in the rear view mirror gets nervous because you look like a cop. He's like, what? Well, you understand. So I had to explain it to him again. And he gets it, finally. He's like, oh. And we pulled in at the next concession where they were selling salesmen, you know, they're selling second-hand cars. And it was a cool place. The salesman was a good guy, you know. And we found... Excuse me. The phone cut out because of memory, and I'm not sure exactly how far we got to in the story, but the case was that we pulled into this second-hand car lot, and the salesman came out, and he was a good old boy. So he and I together, we kind of worked together to advise this guy who didn't know anything about cars about what would actually be a good car for him, for his objective. And the salesman seemed like an honorable guy, not your stereotypical greasy used car salesman. He was all right. And we took a shine to each other, and we got to talking while the driver was freshening up in the restroom before we were going to continue. He offered me a job, and I've been there ever since. And 3 years later, he retired and handed me the keys to the business. That was a couple of years ago, and I just finished paying him off. Thanks for watching.